Good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos. May the blessings of Sabbath surround and delight you. May angels receive you, wash your feet, and refresh you. May you find joy and shalom at the feet of Mashiach. And may tzedakah u'mishpat be awakened anew. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos. Well, Shabbat Shalom, a good morning to you all. A blessed, relaxing, a blessed, refreshing, a blessed awakening of the holy, the Kedusha, the power and the goodness and the kindness of our King. May it wash away the pain. May it wash away the sickness. May it wash away the anger, the woundedness of the work week, of the 6-day week. As we enter into this time of discussion, may it be as if you were sitting at the very feet of Mashiach. It's not my feet. It's not my teaching. May the teaching that you hear in your spirit be as it was unto Miriam, as to Mary, who sat at his feet and received the good portion. Well, this is the week of Parsha Toldot. This is the 6th week of the Torah cycle. Genesis chapter 26, verse 19 is where we begin. And we conclude at Genesis 28, verse 9. These are the stories. These are the great kingdom stories that we call testimonies. Edut in Hebrew. These are the lessons. It's like you tell your child a story about your past or your family. And the child looks at you, why are you telling me the story? Why are you telling me these stories? I said, because in these stories is your identity. Out of these stories, you find energy, you find empowerment, you'll find life. Maybe not today, but over the course of your life, through these stories, you will find out who you are, where you came from, why you're here, and where you are going. Parsha Toldot. Now, as you know, this is the Parsha in which we are introduced to the 3rd generation of the patriarchal team, and that will be Yaakov and Esau. Jacob and Esau, as they're known in the Western world. But Yaakov and Esau will come forth. We're still living under the realm, under the reign of, on the earth, of Yitzhak and Rivka, which are the parents, obviously, of Yaakov and Esau. But within this atmosphere that is being created by Yitzhak, and by Rivka, we have coming forth these two fraternal twins. These are not identical twins. They are fraternal twins. There's Yaakov and there's Esau. And we're going to see that these two are like fire and straw. I mean, these two, like many times we see in life, in our world, maybe in the same family, but certainly in the same neighborhood or the same city, the same workplace, you come across people who are fire to your straw or straw to your fire. And so this issue of enmity, of antithesis, this issue of different perspectives, different goals, different priorities, this message is being introduced to us. And it doesn't matter. These don't have to be foreigners that we never know, or people of a genetic line that we aren't familiar with, or our language that's unfamiliar to us. These can be people in our own realm, our own sphere. People that actually may even be related to us, as it was with Yaakov and Esau. Now, in this context, my opening slide on my PowerPoint that I prepared, and I prepare these for my children, but you get to share in them in the meantime, but I prepare this for the next generation. But on the first page of my PowerPoint, my slideshow that I present, I have a picture of the situation where Yaakov and Esau are discussing a bowl of red stew. That's in this week's Parsha. And Yaakov is holding out the bowl of stew, but he's like, I'm holding it out to you, but I'm going to require something of you before I give it. And you who know the story, who've let these testimonies, these stories enter into your soul, you know what he's asking for, what he's demanding as a condition for the red stew that Esau wishes. It's in English we call it the birthright, in Hebrew bechorah. But this picture shows Esau reaching out with a puzzled look on his face, but yet a determined look. He wants that bowl of red stuff more than he wants anything else in this world or in the world to come. He wants the red stuff. He wants the stew. He wants the soup. He wants that process. He wants the flesh. And so you can tell by the picture, there's a tension in this picture. If you could see it, I'd put it on the screen for you, but I can't. It's a tension, this picture of this tension between Esau and Yaakov. You see it every day in your workplace. You see it every day in your home. You see it all around you, this tension. You have something, I want it. I want something different than you want. And I will judge you because of that. Now, so this tension takes place. And underneath it, I have written what the Holy One has spoken to me. Maybe you know the song. I will sing it to you again. It's a very familiar song. Hine matov u'manaim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manaim shevet achim gam yachad. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity. And you say, what does that have to do with that picture? That's the message of the story. The story is that though we start all our situations and relationships and interactions with our fellow human beings from the standpoint of being Yaakovian versus Esavian in our approach to life, the Holy One in His Ruach, in His Spirit, the Holy One in His message, in His Torah, the Holy One in all of His ways is telling us to say, no, but there is a better way. There is a more excellent way. And that more excellent way is Hine matov u'manaim shevet achim gam yachad. Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together. Well, this is the 6th day of November in 2021, according to the Gregorian calendar. According to the Hebrew calendar, according to the calendar that the Bible says, it is the 2nd day of the 9th month, the 9th moon cycle. I will tell you that's going to mean something to you, or I wouldn't just waste your time talking to you. We have just entered into a moon cycle. Traditional language calls it Kislev, the 9th month of the biblical year. It's this month the new moon took place Thursday evening. The new moon arose, and we're now in the 2nd day. The month of Kislev is a very important time, and the time and the seasons fit with the Torah portion, so we're going to be talking briefly about that. Now, we have this 9th month. And let me give you a little history about the 9th month. You'll need to read Daniel chapters 6 through 10, and particularly focus on chapter 10 and the period of 3 weeks that Daniel is having a struggle in his spirit. And Daniel is having a struggle with his spirit for 3 weeks, and he later has this conversation with an angel, and the messenger angel is going to say, for 3 weeks I've been battling. For 3 weeks I've been battling with the spirit of Persia, but you're about to find the king of Greece. The king of Greece is about to come into your world, even now is coming into your world, these 3 weeks. Well, this is the 3 weeks. If today is the 2nd day of Kislev, next Shabbat will be the 9th day of Kislev. The next week will be the 16th of Kislev, and the 3rd week from now, 3 weeks from now, will be 25 Kislev, the 25th day of Kislev. To some of you, that means nothing. I understand. We're going to walk through the stories to make sure we understand why. And the stories are found, the root of it is found in Daniel chapter 6 through 10. But the essence and the details of it are found in the first book of the Maccabees. And the first book of the Maccabees is going to tell you the story of what took place. Around the first of Kislev, right about where we are right now, there was a decree issued by Antiochus Epiphanes, who was one of the people who ascended to the place of the king of Greece, which was Alexander the Great. And in the second generation, third generation, he begins to come forth. Antiochus the fourth, he comes forth, and he issues a decree. It's a New World Order decree. And the New World Order decree basically says that all nations in the empire, his empire, should abandon their own ways, their own customs, and become as one people. This is what the decree in First Maccabees that is said. This is around the first of we don't know exactly the day, but it's right the first week of Kislev. And the historical happens every year. We come back and renew. So that all nations should abandon their own customs and become one people. This is the New World Order. This is the idea of the one world order. So this was initially put in First Maccabees chapter 1. And they are to swear allegiance to the official pagan humanistic narrative. The official pagan humanistic narrative. And they're to offer sacrifices to humanistic idols, idols that human. As a matter of fact, they had human faces. Like Antiochus had his own face, but he made it look like the face of Zeus. So you had to worship this idol. You had to think this person is a personification of deity, has special powers, has special rights. And you are to renounce, in connection with that, you must renounce the Holy One, whoever your God is, but for Israel it meant renouncing the Holy One. It means you are no longer to observe the Kedusha. What are the Kedusha? The holinesses. The holinesses are the Sabbath. You can't observe the Sabbath is a Kedusha. It is a realm of holiness. The Holy Sabbath. He made it holy. So you can't observe the Sabbath because that would be obedience to your old law, your old God, your old way of thinking, your old narrative. So the creation and the seventh day of creation, you can't observe the Sabbath. The second thing you can't observe is you can't observe the festivals. You can't observe the Moedim, the Passover, and Sukkot, tabernacles. You can't, Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, these things. First Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, or Yom Teruah, the Day of Trumpets. You can't observe these things because these are Kedusha elements. They have elements of holiness and energy in them. So those things were forbidden. In addition, you can't study the Torah because the Torah is the Holy Torah. You can't study the Writ because the Holy Writ. You can't study the things of Kedusha. You can't study that. So you can't study it. You can't meditate on it. You cannot practice it. The things that it says are against the law. All these things. This is the decree of Antiochus. This is what happens around the first of this month. And not only the Kedusha, it's also the Tahora, the things of cleanliness, the things of purity. You cannot focus on those things. Matter of fact, you need to be as impure and unclean as you can. As a matter of fact, you can't eat the things that are supposed to be God told you to eat. You must eat what man says you need to eat. You must eat, particularly, you must eat the pig. You must eat the flesh of the swine. That's the litmus test. If you'll eat the flesh of the swine, they know you'll eat anything. So that was the test. So this happens on the first of Kislev, the first week of Kislev. The announcement comes out from the new leader of the known world that these things are required and these things are forbidden. Now this is coming in your world today. At a theater near you, at a gymnasium near you, at a sports complex near you, at a political forum near you, at a university near you, these things are coming. They're already here to some degree, but this is the season. So as we get into this month of Kislev, the 3-week period that will end on the 25th of Kislev, it is a key. Are you ready for this? I don't mean are you ready to fight. I mean, are you ready to transcend? Are you ready to keep your shalom? I mean, are you ready to overcome in ways that bring the majesty and the goodness of the Holy One forward? Are you ready to rely upon Him rather than upon the things of the world that would fight? Are you an Esavian or are you a Yacovian? Are you a Yisraeli, which is the ultimate level to which Yaakov could reach when he became Israel? Or are you a Edomite? Are you an Edomi, which is the lowest level to which Esau could sink in his national realm, where everything was about fighting and killing, and you had to die if you didn't go, which is the whole process of what we're seeing in Antiochus' decree and the Greco-Roman approach to life. So that was how it happened. On the first day, the decree went forward. On the 15th day of Kislev, which is next Friday, no, so 2 Fridays from now. 2 Fridays from now. No, next Friday. Yeah, next Friday. I think I'll get you. Anyway, one of these days. The 16th is 2 weeks, so Friday week. Friday week, their anniversary of what is called the abomination of desolation, which you'll see this phrase used by Yeshua, by Messiah. This is how we know the latter days are coming upon us. This is how we know his return is near, because we see of the abomination that causes desolation. It's referenced by Daniel, and it's also specifically given the factual, historical details, the imagery is given in book of Maccabees, First Maccabees. And so in the temple in Jerusalem, they took down everything that was holy, and they put up instead a statue to Zeus looking like Antiochus, and this became the abomination of desolation. They put it right over the altar so that it would take the place of everything and this is the abomination that causes desolation, a complete desecration of everything that is holy, everything that is of the Holy One, and a declaration to that a man is entitled to that worship instead, that a man in his humanistic ways, what men can do, is worshipped as opposed to that. So the abomination of desolation is set up in the temple. And then over the next 9 days, from the 16th, 7 days, 19th, from Kislev 16 on, a similar altar to the pagan narrative was required to be established in each of the villages of Israel. Each little town, each city, in the public square, they had to produce this. And so over the next few days in Kislev, they put these abominations of desolation, like the one in the temple, in every village. And then on the 25th day, and in the meanwhile, if you had a Torah scroll, they searched you out, they sought you out, and the soldiers took the Torah scrolls, arrested you, took the scrolls to the public square, burned them on the public square, and then executed you in front of the public so that everyone would know that it's against the law to maintain a Torah scroll. Or if they caught you observing the Shabbat, or if they caught you observing any of the things of the Kedusha, or any of the things of Tahora, cleanliness. So that was during that period of time. Then the 25th of Kislev. On the 25th of Kislev, this was the day it was required that pigs be sacrificed on the altar, on each of these pagan altars. A pig was brought in. They had been let to run loose in the temple, so they had left their marks of what pigs do whenever they're left alone, to run for a while all over the temple floor to desecrate it as much as possible. Then they slew the pig and sacrificed on the altar, and then they required the priest or whoever was there to eat of it, of the meat. And that was done in the villages as well, and that's what actually instigated the Maccabean revolt. That's where the Maccabean revolt really started, was when they tried to do that in the village of Modi'in and the family of Mattathias Maccabee. Now, I'm telling you all these stories. Why are you telling me these stories? Because this is your story. Because this is the world story. Because this is where you're going to find out who you really are and what you're really about. And all the things you think are important, whether you see around you that look shiny and glittery, and you do things, and you go to the coffee shop, and you have a restaurant, and that's not what your life is about. What your life is about is how you respond when these things begin to take place. Are you ready? Are you prepared to walk in the Spirit rather than in the flesh when those things take place? So here we are at the beginning of Kislev. We're early in the process. The abomination has not been built yet, but it's coming. The pigs have not been gathered yet for us to be forced fed, but they're coming. The desecrations have not occurred completely yet. We haven't been prevented from reading the Torah yet. Today we have the chance to read the Torah out loud publicly and put it on Facebook and YouTube and other forms of social media. But one day it will not be so. One day soon it will not be so. Are we ready for this? Are we ready for this? Or will we react in the flesh? You can't do that to us. Yes, they can. Oh, yes, they can. And yes, they will. We don't have a get out of paganism, get out of false narrative card to play. Well, at any rate, that's why we're doing what we're doing. We're introduced this week to Parsha Toldot, which is the Parsha of Antithesis. The Parsha of your versus against me and me against you. The Parsha of you're my offset, you're my counterbalance, you're here. And Esav and Yaakov are the perfect example of what that looks like. There is a offset here. Yaakov cannot become who he would be but for Esav. You'd like to have Esav taken out of the world. You'd like to have all your enemies, all the people who disagree with you, just removed from the world, and you can have it all to yourself. He says, you'll never become who you were created to be. You will never earn and learn the things that you were created to earn and learn. You will never mature unless you have this offsetting, counterbalancing antithesis of your Esau or your Yaakov, as the case may be. The world can't do without Yaakov's. The world can't do without Esau's either. So here we have these two, this antithesis, this idea of counterbalance. Balance, counterbalance. We have this concept of that is referenced in the book of Proverbs. It's Shlomo, the wisest man on the earth, says, iron as man is with his neighbor, so iron sharpens iron. Iron sharpens iron. Now sparks fly. When iron sharpens iron, there's tension, and when iron sharpens iron, there's friction. And when iron sharpens iron, there's sparks flying everywhere. But that's how iron sharpens iron. Well, that's what we're in for. We are now in this time. My children, my friends, my beloved ones, understand the things that you think are the one things you want to get out of the world. The Holy One's saying, I left them in the world for you. Because you are so much more than you know you are. And unless you have the pressure, the friction, unless you experience the tension, unless you experience the counterbalance of these factors, you will have no motivation. You will have no inspiration. You will have no reason to mature. You'll just sit back and grow yeshurun fat in this process. And so we have this Parsha of Antithesis. Now, with that antithesis, what can we expect to see? Whenever we find that we are here and He has put these enemies in this world against us to face us, these adversaries, even sometimes of our own flesh, of our own kin, even sometimes within us, that these adversaries, as Yetzer Hara, as well as the physical adversaries of this world, are in this world for us, what can we expect? We can expect mocking, mockery. We can expect envy. We can expect betrayal. We can understand these things are the natural course of activity. And the key is not to suffer the wound and cry and moan. The key is to say, what did that do to serve to make me stronger? How can, therefore, I grow through this process? How can I not react in kind to what was just done to me? And how, instead, can I begin to release the goodness, the wisdom, the kindness, the mercies, the angelic powers of God? Well, that's the mission. These are actually last resort motivators of the Holy One, the adversary, the enmity. The enmity we face, he would rather us respond to the movement of His Spirit, to be led by the Spirit. These are the sons of God, as Yeshua taught us, as Paul taught us. To be led by the Spirit are to be the sons of God. Now, the problem is we do not respond very well to the leadership of the Spirit. Oh, we say we do in religious circles. We do in meetings. But I'm talking about in life. When struggles come, when challenges face us, when we are face-to-face confrontations and dealing with trials, and we get sick, or our friends or our neighbors become ill, these things begin. And we can do it in a church service or a synagogue meeting. We can do it when we're all sitting around talking about how good the Torah is, or how good the Holy One is, or how good Yeshua is. But whenever the road gets rough and the friction kicks off and the sparks fly, then we say, nobody knows the trouble I've seen. It's not fair. It's not right. I hate it when. Isn't it terrible that? And the Holy One says, see, that's why I have to keep pushing the envelope here, because the Holy Spirit doesn't motivate you. Your flesh is so strong. The Spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So I have to motivate you by giving you another reason to do what you do, to become who you're created to be. And that's where you get the enmity. So this is the Parsha of walking out the covenant in the context of hostile people and hostile cultures. Walking out the covenant, not in some utopia, some wonderful realm where everybody loves everybody and we all sing Hinei Ma Tov U'ma Na'im. But in a world of hostility, this is where we shine. You know what light is? Light, as I've said many times, light is energy facing resistance. Because when you hit the resistance of like the tungsten filament in a light bulb, the power, the electrons, or the energy begin to work with that friction, that resistance that they meet, and they cause a glow. They cause you to shine. They cause a shining forth. The heating comes up, and then a light force emanates from it. So if you want to be light, you are the light of the world. Do you know what that means? That means you have to face the resistance of the world and keep the energy pulsing. Keep the energy of holiness pulsing. That means that you do not surrender to the resistance of the world. You do not surrender to the enmity and the hostility of the peoples around you. You keep your shalom. You keep your connection to the ancient wells, the portals of heaven coming to earth. And therefore light comes forth to you because you pass through resistance without succumbing to the resistance. That's why you are the light of the world. That's why Yeshua taught he was the light of the world, because that's what he did. And now we are in him, walking after him, following his example, empowered by him and by his Holy Spirit, and we are to become the same thing. So this is the Parsha of walking out the covenant in the context of hostile people and cultures. This is also what I call the Parsha of antithetical worldviews. People have a different worldview than you do. That's why you don't have to talk the same talk. That's why you don't talk the same language. Sometimes you don't have the same definitions for terms, because they have a totally different worldview than you have. Different perspectives, different goals in life. What are your goals? What do you think is the difference between your goals and the people who are hostile to you? They have goals too. Your goals are just different than their goals. You know, the Holy One put it this way, or Yeshua put it this way, I should say. I will go into that. Yeshua put it this way. He said, do not store up for yourselves treasures on the earth, where the moth and the things break through, the thief breaks through and steals. But instead, set your treasures upon heaven, your heart upon their treasures in heaven, because, you know, where your heart is, where your treasure is, I should say, there will be your heart also. You want to know what's motivating? Those who are hostile to you, those who are your resistance, it's the things of this world. It's the things, their treasures are all in this world. And our treasures are not supposed to be in this world. You say, what? But where are they to be? Beyond the veil. Our treasure is beyond the veil. Remember last week we talked about the veil, or the portal that was opened, the Moriah portal, and how what we have is our job is to find those portals and begin to bring the things of the heavenly realm, the unseen realm, into play in this world. That's where our treasures are, not the things of this world. The things that we can bring from the heavenly realm, the unseen realm, into this world. One reason I sang to you the song that I did this morning. Now, we have this challenge that we face as we approach the month of Kislev, this 3-week period that Daniel struggled with the angel. Daniel struggled in prayer, and the angel struggled with the Prince of Persia. This 3 weeks that happens every year, there are actually 3 periods each year that I won't go into the others. There's another 3-week period that happens in the 5th month. And then there's Yom Kippur, and we have these different days when we face these, what we feel like at least, are existential challenges, existential threats to our life. Well, the hostiles around us, the people around us, the adversaries to us, the people like Antiochus who have the humanistic narrative and the temporal world, this world's narrative about what's important in life. Now, the problem that we have is we buy into it. We buy into their focus upon appetites and urges and emotions and sentiments. We buy into the Esavian approach to life. What was Esau driven by? Hunger, appetite, urge, desire, lust, greed. Everything was about this world. Everything about what he could see with his eyes. The bowl of red stuff. He could see it. He could smell it. He could sense it. It stirred something fleshly inside of him, and he was moved by that. Well, same thing with regard to the red stuff that flowed out of the buck that he ensnared and trapped on the day that he sought the blessing of his father. The red stuff. It's the same red stuff. He hungered for the blood. He hungered for the... Now, we are to hunger for something much deeper, much greater than these things, transcendent of these things. A different kind of blood. A different kind of red stuff to flow into us from the realm of the heavenly, not from the realm of the earthly. All right. The story... We have the stories in this week that we'll tell of Yitzhak and Rivka and the stories of Yaakov and Esav, at least in their early years. We're going to have a series of parshas that will deal with Yaakov in particular, somewhat Esav, but mostly Yaakov from this point forward. But this week, we're introduced to the Esavian and the Yitzakian nature. Now, I want to talk to you first, though, about Yitzhak and Rivka. I want to talk to you about marriage before I want to talk to you about brotherhood. Now, you remember that we have an unseen realm and a seen realm. Now, in the unseen realm, I just want you to walk with me and talk with me. Listen to me for a while. Muse with me for a while. In the unseen realm, in the heavenlies, where the Holy One sits enthroned, and where the cherubim and the seraphim sing their songs, and where the 24 elders sit upon their seats, and where the four living creatures are, and where the multitudes of the angels exist. There seems to be everything, but there is one thing missing. What's missing? The passion of human flesh. The worship of the created, as opposed to just the understanding that we all serve a majestic, glorious creature, glorious being, the Holy One himself. And so what the Holy One does is, I want to go into the realm. I want to go into the realm of the earth, of the flesh. My goal is not to have angels worship me, not to have angels understand the beauty and the majesty of who I am, but to have men do it. To have human beings who have other distractions, who have other possible priorities, who have all sorts of reasons not to see me, not to want me, not to serve me, not to honor me, to choose to do so anyway, to be so caught up in the things of this holiness that they can see through the veil, through the portals of this world, that they begin to do on earth what is done in heaven. I hope you've been walking with me through this process. This is the idea of how we are called to be the bride people. Because we are now called to be, he wants to come into this world and grab his bride, grab those who would be of passion that he cannot find. He can find obedience. He can find admiration. But he can't find the kind of passion and love that human beings alone can offer because of their connection with this world. So, Yitzhak has found a bride. Yitzhak has found, Rivka. Look, I told you last week, the story is not so much a Hallmark movie or a Hallmark romance as it was a kinsman redemption. Well, the thing about kinsman redemptions is What you get when you kinsman redeem, when you take that person, is you got a mess. The reason they needed redemption is because they were personally a mess, and they grown up in a mess, and they were a mess, and they were driven. And Rivka was a mess. Even her name told you she was a mess. She's an ensnarer. She's a rope with a noose on the end. That's who she is, Rivka. That's what that Rebecca means. And so we have this, she's a mess. And so Yitzhak is not a mess. Isaac is not a mess. Isaac has been the first one. He's the representative of Mashiach. He lives in this realm. He doesn't fail. He's got his Genesis 22 on his resume. Genesis 20. He walked voluntarily. His treasure was not in this world. He is moved on. He's got the Genesis 22 on his resume. He's overcome everything. There's also stories, and I won't go through the great stories, but Yitzhak is not a mess. Rivka's a mess. So what he does is he takes the mess as a bride. If you can see the picture of Yitzhak and Rivka, you can see the picture of you and the Holy One. And his people and the Holy One. We're a hot mess, man. We've been living in the realm of deception, and we're nooses on the end of a rope for people, for concepts, for everything. Either we're in the noose or we're making the noose. That's what life is upon this earth. And so here he comes into this, and they bring Rivka. And so the idea is, what can the mixture of Yitzhak, whose focus is solely upon the other realm, and who sees things through the eyes of the holy realm, what possibly could happen if, they always tell the jokes, if you mixed a so-and-so with a crossed a so-and-so with a so-and-so, what would you get? So you mix a Rivka and a Yitzhak, what do you think you're going to get? Well, we have Esav and Yitzhak. That's what we're going to get. And both of them have little bits of both in. People say, why did Yitzhak love Esav? Not only why did he love him, father should love his child. Not just why did he love it, why did he intend to bless him? Couldn't he see? We only get a little bit about the stories. We get enough to make you concerned about this process. The Hebrew midrashes tell you the stories of, even on the day of the porridge sale, the red stuff sale. That was supposedly, according to the midrash, that was the day of Raham's death. And Yitzhak is making a lentil stew, which is a food for the family when they come back from the funeral, from burial. It's a traditional Greek mourning food. So he's making this food for those who come back. But who comes back? It's not the mourners. It's Esav. And when Esav comes back, he hasn't been to the funeral. He hasn't been saying goodbye to his beloved grandfather. He's been out, and according to the Midrash, he's raped a betrothed girl, a girl who was betrothed to another, taken her by force and raped her. He's murdered a man, and he's worshipped foreign gods. And now he comes back in, and he comes and he says to Yitzhak, he smells to Yaakov, and he smells the red stuff, the stew, the lentil soup. And he says, give me some of that. And he doesn't say, I'm hungry. People think, well, he was just hungry from the long day out. No, he doesn't say I'm hungry. He says, I'm exhausted. And of course, why are you exhausted, Esav? What are you wearing yourself out over, Esav? Those of us who are caught up in the flesh and the mortality and the things of this world, on the Shabbat, why are you so exhausted? What have you been doing? What have you been chasing? What dangers have you been engaging? What bloodthirst have you been indulging? What hate have you been spouting? What damage have you been doing in your world that you're so exhausted? And so, according to the legend, of course, Yaakov says, there's no way this guy can carry the torch of the covenant. And so he sells him what's called the birthright. But I was talking about Yitzhak and Rivka. Rivka is kind of like Esau. When she comes, and she comes into a household, she takes over Sarah's tent. And the essence of the sweetness of Sarah is in her. The atmosphere changes, and she's beginning to change. But things don't happen overnight. The reason we bless our children to be as Rivka is not because she was holy from the beginning. It was because over the course of time she learned through the antithesis. And over the course of time, she overcame the flesh of who she was and the nature of where she came from, in Laban's house and house of Bethuel, the idolater. And she began to exhibit more and more maturity, more and more spirituality, more and more ability to focus on the future realm. That's why we bless our children, our daughters. May you be as Rivka, as well as be like Sarah and Rachel and Leah. So we have this issue of the story of Yitzhak and Rivka, the story of the Holy One and people of earth that he desires to make unto like a bride to him. And the idea reminds you of Genesis, hopefully, chapter 2. For this cause, and all you married people out there, remember why you're married. For this cause, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become Besar Echad. They shall become, English we read it as one flesh. It doesn't mean you will become one flesh of one act when you do it, when you join your bodies together. Basar Echad means that you will gradually, over the course of the rest of your life, overcome obstacles and challenges, overcome the resistance and the friction. And you'll become more and more, you will draw closer and closer together until you begin to function as one unit. Well, that's where we're going, but that's not where we're going to be this week. That's the goal, is to get Rivka out of her mess that she came in and Yitzhak out of his realm to the place where they can function together as a unit, but it ain't happening this week. To the contrary, this week we're going to see the friction. This week we will see the enmity. This week we will see the disagreement. Now I'm going to go back to the question I asked you about Yaakov and Esau and Yitzhak. Why did Yitzhak love Esau? He was a cad. He was the ultimate adversary. He was, if the midrashes are halfway correct here, he's a rapist, he's a murderer, he's an idolater, all on the day that his grandfather died and was buried. That's just one day. And all he wants is red stuff out of a bowl. That's enough for him. Why then did Yitzhak, why was he so foolish? Why was he so full of him? Why was he so tricked? He said he wasn't tricked at all. Why did he take Rivka? Why on earth would he take Rivka as a bride? The same reason he would love Esau. Why would he want to bless Esau? Because he believed that if you take something from the holy realm, from the realm of the unseen, from the realm of the kingdom of heaven, and you bring it into the earth and you deposit it and you apply it in the earth, in the fleshly realm, then there's something marvelous will happen. You see, the thing about the vision that you get from the vision, going through the veil, passing through the veil and receiving things from the unseen realm, is that the vision is that everything has the potential for good. Everybody has the potential for good. As a matter of fact, when the Holy One sees things, he never says, "Oh, it's terrible." He says, and he looked and he beheld it and he saw it and it was good. And so he looks at Esau and of course Rivka can't see it. All Rivka sees is herself. When she looks at Esau, she sees herself in her worst days, in her worst moments, back in Padan Aram, back in the house of Laban. She sees her brother, she sees her father, she sees everyone in her family. She doesn't want anything to do with Esau other than what the mother has to do to make him survive. But Yitzhak has no such broken vision. He doesn't see that. He sees through the eyes that have been through the veil. He sees through the eyes of the Holy One himself. So he looks at Esau and he says, he still has good in him. And my job is to bring something to him from the unseen realm, something beyond the things of this world, and to infuse that into the things of this world. And so he takes the one thing that Esau loves. Esau didn't kill for food. He didn't hunt for food. Yitzhak's home, his tent was never empty. Yitzhak's, everywhere he went, he was abundantly blessed. We see this process, even in this Parsha. Even in Gerar, whenever he tries this new hand at this new thing called farming, and he plants a seed, and he reaps 100-fold the first year, and everybody else is starving to death around him. And Yitzhak's household is not lacking food. He doesn't need to. So Esau doesn't go out to hunt because he needs food. He goes out to hunt because he loves the thrill of the chase and the thrill of the kill and the power that he feels, the control that he feels when he takes the life and take the lifeblood and takes the flesh out of another creature. And he has ultimate power and control over the things of this world. And then if he can eat it and make a tasty meal of it, how much the better for him? Because he's all focused upon the flesh. He's all focused upon what he can taste, what he can feel, what he can smell. He's all focused upon emotion. He's all focused upon sentiment. He's all focused upon what makes him feel strong and powerful and important. So what is that? That's what is important to him. So Yitzhak says, how can I touch him at that realm? Because I know who he is. You're going to have to go with me on some of these things and say, maybe he's wrong, maybe he's right. I understand. I don't want your theology. What I want is your heart. What I want is your understanding that the Holy One has grand plans. And he put these stories in his book for a reason, more so than just to tickle your intellect. He desired to touch you at the deepest levels of who you are and to define why you're here. So let's just assume that I'm correct for a second, and that the vision of the sages is correct, and that what happened is that Yitzhak says, how can I touch my son who is in the most danger, the most threat to myself and to our family and to the world? How can I change it? How can I bring something of the unseen realm, of the holy realm, into his most dark, most obsessed, flesh-obsessed world? Ah, the blessing. What is a blessing? A blessing is a message from the unseen realm. It is an affirmation. It is a direction. It is a guidance. It is something that awakens the spirit within a man, not the flesh. So Yitzhak says, I will bless you, Esau. I will bless the one thing that shows your connection with this world, with the flesh of this world. The one thing that you see and drives you further away, I will take and I will infuse the holiness of God into even the most fleshly things of this world. I will bless you. Well, Rivka doesn't see this. Rivka doesn't know. Rivka I can't imagine a blessing upon what he's doing right now. As Yitzhak would say, I'm not blessing what he's doing right now. I'm seeing something you don't see. I see who he could be. I see what he could become. And I see what God made him and fused upon him. I see the good. I'm speaking to the good and the potential within him. Well, Rivka can't see it. And so what we have is this idea of what is happening in this marriage that we have with the Holy One. When the Holy One says, I will take unto you a people of this earth as a bride, what he wants to say is, we're going to disagree on many things. I will see things you can't see, but stay with me. Don't leave me. Don't forsake me. I won't ever forsake you. And together we will learn to gradually become more and more aligned in this process. The question becomes now that the Holy One, I believe, would ask us, each of us, as we entered into this 3-week period, when the enmity becomes stronger and stronger. How much enmity we see each year depends upon many factors. Some of what's going on in the world, how many deer appear before Esau, and how much bloodlust he has. And the other thing is how little hunger for the Holy One and the holy things we have in us. Those things combined to determine how much of the first 3 weeks of Kislev will we see every year. Well, I'm praying that our thirst for the holy things is increasing, expanding, burgeoning, flourishing. I pray for Esau that he's not seeing very many deer, that he's not seeing many things to incite his passion for this year. But whatever comes, whichever way it turns, may he be with us. The question we must ask ourselves is not what's happening with Esau. Read the news, listen to the internet. You figure out quickly what Esau is doing, where his bloodlust lies, and how many red stuff, piles of red or flowing, oozing layers of red stuff there is he's leaving upon the earth. The question is not that. The question is, what about us? What about those who have actually been touched from the other side of the veil by the things of the holy realm? What about us? What are we doing? And now the question becomes, I go a little deeper. I'm going to get a little, people may think it's psychological. I'm not trying to be psychological. I'm trying to awaken something in the spirit. I'm trying to talk to your spirit. What motivates you to do what you do? What motivates any human being to do what any human being does? There are three basic things. The first thing, and I'm going to go from what should motivate us, from what is designed, what is intended to motivate us, and what over a course of time we'll get to. The first motivator, the intended motivator of the Holy One, is the moving, the rachaf, the brooding, the flowing movement of the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh. We are supposed to be led by the Spirit. We're supposed to be controlled, guided by the Spirit. We're supposed to be taught by the Spirit. We're supposed to be inspired by the Spirit. All these things that he said in Matthew 16 that Yeshua taught us about the Holy Spirit. He will lead us into all truth, into all kol emet. Not just empirical truth. That's not. Kol emet means to see the bigger picture, the whole picture of what's really happening, not just what's the truth in this instance, what's real and what's unreal, or what's false and what's right in this situation or this context. No, the kol emet. What he will lead us into all the wholeness, the fullness of what truth really is. Well, that's what he's doing, and he's doing it, teaching us to hunger for the will, and for the works, and for the ways, and for the words of the Father. That's what the Holy Spirit does, right? And so he's coming, and he comes to bring forth fruit. What fruit? The motivation. What does the Spirit do? What fruit does the Holy Spirit desire to bring forth? Well, his own fruit. Fruit that reproduces himself. What is that? Love, joy, peace, shalom, patience, kindness, meekness, gentleness, goodness, and self-denial. We call it self-control, but it's being able to deny our fleshly urges and appetites, deny our pseudo-intellectual opinions and ideas and concepts of what's right and wrong and fair and unfair and moral or immoral, and deny those things and stay focused upon the will of the Holy One. This is the motivation that we're supposed to be flowing under. How are we doing? I'm flowing under the motivation of all of our thoughts and all of our words and all of our interactions with other human beings, even those who are adversarial to us, even those who are friction, even those who are straw or fire, as the case may be to us. How are we doing on that? Are we following the motivation that's given to us by the movement of the Holy Spirit? This is our challenge. This is important. If we don't get this and we don't teach this to our children, then we will be flowing, they will be flowing under the other motivations, under the motivations of Esau. And oh, what damage they can do. Oh, what havoc they can wreak upon each other, upon themselves, and upon the world. So we are called to say, okay, are you in love? Are you passionately drawn to the movement of the Holy Spirit, of the Ruach HaKodesh? Do you desire to flow in these things? He desires to bring forth fruit. He desires to bring you into kol emet, into all the fullness of what the truth is. He desires to bring, what does he do? Order to chaos. So you see chaos, you don't cry, chaos! You speak order. You work order into that process. He sees chaos, and he brings order. He sees meaninglessness, uselessness, vanity. And he brings purpose. Purpose, a reason to be here, a reason to do things, a focus upon what's really happening, what the plan of God really is. And he brings into darkness, what does he bring? He brings light. Now, you talked about light. Light is overcoming resistance through pulsing energy, not losing the energy, overcoming the resistance. Well, this is what the Holy Spirit does. This is our motivator. As we need to come to this month of Kislev, this 3-week period of Kislev that we're into. Are we ready? This is called the Festival of Lights when you get to 25th of Kislev. The light should be shining brightly because we have learned to overcome the resistance in the process in the meantime. Well, and not react to it in the flesh. What are the other two motivators? Oh, we haven't talked about them yet. Well, we sort of have, but we'll get to more specifically. If you're not following the Holy Spirit, if you're not being caught up in the swell and the movement of what he's doing, and we've talked about what that looks like, then you are following one or both of the other two motivators. First motivator is the flesh motivation number one, Ra, number one, and that is the hope or expectation of reward. Instant gratification or delayed gratification, it doesn't really matter. Instant gratification was more of Esau's thing. He wanted to taste the red stuff. He wanted to smell something sweet. He wanted to take something that wasn't his. He wanted to feel the surge of power, of control over other people. He wanted favor. He wanted all the fleshly things of this world. He wanted his treasures were here upon the earth. And instant gratification, but someone can also do it. You can also do this gratification search with delayed gratification. You can do things so you can go to heaven when you die. You can do things so that you get blessed while you're on the earth. You can do things so that you make money, so that you get rich over a period of time, so that you build your career, so that you build your influence in the community, little bit by little bit, that you feel good about yourself because you've done a good thing. These are delayed gratification processes, but they're still flowing out of the flesh. So it's like, oh my goodness. So the flesh motivation number one is this hope, expectation of reward. And then there's the third kind of that version. I've talked about the instant gratification process, which is lust and greed and envy and jealousy. You immediately act on it and you immediately try to get something back from it. That's the flesh motivation. One, part two is the delayed gratification, where you actually plan and you scheme and you strategize to bring things that will make you happy, make you feel better, make you feel important in your life. And the third thing is pseudo-intellectual gratification. And that is all up in your head. You want to have the right opinions. You want to be right about stuff. You want to win arguments. You want to be smarter than the average bear. You want to be smarter than the next guy. You want to have more knowledge spiritually or physically about any subject. You know more about sound equipment than anybody else. You know more about cars than anybody else. You know more about why the grass grows in certain places and doesn't grow. And you got to know everything about everything. This is a competition in the world about who knows what. And this is the pseudo-intellectual gratification process, part of flesh momentum number one. There's also flesh motivation number two. The Ra, and it's flowing, it's all based upon emotion. How do I feel? What do I feel? What are you feeling about that? The world today is all caught up in this one. This is the primary motivator today. What do you feel? Do you feel, does this make you feel good? How does this make you feel? As a matter of fact, they ask you, the psychologists want to tell you, how do you feel about that? They want you to think this way. This is the way of Ra number two, the issue of the motivator number two. If they can make you feel a certain way, they'll make you repeat your conduct. If they can make you feel good, they'll make you repeat the conduct that got you to feel good. This is why addictions are so easy to get. They're so easy to addict you. Any substance, any behavior is addictive if it gives you some sense of gratification and makes you feel a certain way. So this gratification process. And this is flesh passion. So what are the main ways in which they use emotions? There's anger. If they can get you angry, anger releases endorphins. It releases a chemical wash into your body. And it's like a high. So no wonder, if they want, why do the media want you outraged? Why do the politicians want you to be angry? Why do the social justice crusaders want you to get just furious and yell and scream and rant and carry signs and wave and make people threaten them if they don't behave and follow and chant your mantra? Why do they do that? because they know that they can get the endorphins going, they can get the flow going, then you'll repeat the process, and you're an addict to their behavior. So anger, sentimentality, fleshy sentimentality. This is why they play certain kinds of music beginning in November. If you go to the stores, if you go to the mall, if you go to any secular store, you notice you hear these songs over and over again, and they call forth a sentiment out of your flesh. They don't awaken your spirit, they awaken your flesh. The idea is, it's so sweet. I want the greenery and the smell and the snow that we never see. The white this and the white that. We want this, and we want this image of our family all gathered around and eating figgy pudding, together. How many of those have you really had? I mean, it's just a dream. It's just a sentimentality process is designed to suck you into it. And then you live the dream, but you don't live the reality. And you try to reproduce the dream, and it never happens quite the way you want it to. Witness the Griswolds. But anyway. Now, so we have this idea of stirring your emotions, stirring your sentiments, stirring your anger, and stirring your fear. Fear is another means in which motivators. If you're afraid of something, you'll hide from it, you'll fight it, you'll resist it. One of the two, you'll either fight or flight. It activate this other realm. This is another fleshly realm of motivation. Why do we do things? We either do things because the Spirit of the Holy One is drawing us, pulling us into it with this beauty and producing fruit out of it, or we do it because it gives us gratification, or we think it will, or we hope for reward, or we fear punishment, or we're just angry and we can't control ourselves, or we're just sentimental and we're just wanting to break down and cry and watch Hallmark movies, or go shopping. This is the motivations of the world. Those are only really the main motivations of life. So which one will you choose? And in this era, in this season, when we can't control what Esau is doing in the world, we can't control his bloodlust, other than by trying the Yitzakian method, which is, I'm going to bless him. It's funny because if you read that story, after he had blessed Yaakov, who has a bit of the Rivka deception in him himself, after he's given the blessing that he wanted to give to Esau, he's given it to Yaakov. Esau comes. Don't you have a blessing for me? Well, you and I would say, no. You don't deserve one. You deserve a curse. You're a jerk. You're a liar, a thief. You're a murderer. You're an idolater. You're a rapist. You're all these horrible things. Why would I bless you? I'm glad Yaakov came and got the blessing. Now I don't have to do that. And Yitzhak, what does he do? None of that. Instead, he gives him another blessing. He brings the things of the holy into this totally impure life. Totally sick and diseased, broken life. And the young man's got to either take it or not. And so Yitzhak pronounces another blessing over Esau. It's a smaller blessing. It's not the fullness of the blessing. It's a blessing. Something from the eternal realm he deposits in the life of his broken, torn up, messed up son. And so the question now becomes, Esau, how will you respond? You got a blessing. You got a touch of heaven coming into your life, an opportunity to turn you around. What do? And he was wroth. He went the other way. He went the other motivation. He didn't move with the motivation that the Spirit was giving him. He moved with the flesh again, and this flesh, his anger got a hold of him. And he screamed, I will kill him. As soon as my father is dead, I will kill my brother. Yaakov. Now, you say, well, maybe Yaakov deserved it. There's your problem when you think that way. I'm not saying Yaakov was perfect in this scenario by any stretch of the imagination. Yaakov was, and Rivka, who put him up to it, the whole mixture, the whole scheme was the lowest level of Yaakovian way that you could possibly imagine. This is not how he's going to end. This is how he began. But just because he has done a bad thing does not mean anyone is justified in killing him. We have a saying in the law. It's really a very profane, I think, saying in its way. But whenever you find out, that a murder took place in your community, a death took place in your community, and you find out that the one who was killed was a child molester, a wife beater, a drug kingpin, one who was putting other children up to drug addictions and whatever. And there's a saying among some of the folks that we know, well, he deserved killing. I think it came out of some Western movies back in the old days. That varmint needed killing. Well, that's a very fleshly way of looking at life. It's not the Holy Spirit's way of looking at things. It's so not by men. Not by men. If there is anything to take place, that's not our chore. It's not our job. Vengeance is not ours. You can look back over the course of American history for the last year, 2 years, and you can see a lot of people who just took up this process. They need killing. They just need killing. Those people need killing. And they went in the streets and they burned down the buildings and they threatened the people and they marched and they waved signs and they forced people to kneel and they just need killing. Well, this is, you see the difference in the way of the flesh versus the way of the Spirit. Where the Spirit says, no, what they need is another chance of something heavenly being released. This is the only chance they've got, is to release something of the heavenly realms into their life. The blessing. So I hope this helps you as you begin to see your adversaries, as you begin to see those people who are lining up to be the Esavs or to be the Antiochuses of this world, or the Roman or the Greek soldiers who come to stand and force you to try to do things that are totally against what you would ever do. To abandon the Kedusha, the whole things of Kedusha, the Sabbath, to abandon the Torah, to abandon the ways of Mashiach, the plan of Mashiach. When you see them coming, your flesh is going to say they need killing. That was Mattathias' approach. And Mattathias took his sword out and he began to slay. And there was a revolt, and it seemed to go well for a while, but the end result of this whole process is the Romans came to take the place of the Greeks. And we invited them in. And they ruled and they destroyed the temple. And they called forth the death and the crucifixion of Yeshua. So all these things were set in motion. Now, as we begin to see these things unfold before our eyes, and as we try to explain to our children, and those of us who are like children to us in the fact that they listen to what we may say or ask for our counsel or our wisdom, where we are will determine how severe the situation us and our children face. And the response that we make, whether it be in the flesh, whether it be by the motivations of Ra number 1 or Ra number 2, of the idea of gratification and reward, or whether it be in the idea instead of emotion, flow out of hot emotion. This will determine how beautiful, how good, or how painful, how much friction, how many sparks fly in our family, in our given family situation. So we have one more story. I'll leave that with you because that's, I think, to me this year, the most important thing I could tell you about the Yacovian and the Esavian worldviews. We are determining, we have an Esavian bent. We all like things of this world. But if we love this world, then we are at enmity with God. There's no two ways around it. So we need to learn to release and relinquish our love for this world. We can desire to infuse the things of this world with holiness. This is why the way of the fathers, of the sages, is to say, and as Yeshua taught, it is not, I do not pray that you take them out of the world. I pray you leave them in the world. And while in the world, that they begin to release things of the holy realm into the natural things of this earth. So how would that happen? What are the things of the flesh? Well, let's just use eating, for example. Eating is very flesh. Angels don't have to eat. 24 elders are not sitting around having meals. Yeshua didn't have to eat. Now, so we eat. Our flesh craves food. It needs nourishment. So we're going to be having to have a meal. But why do we eat? Why did Esau kill? Why did he hunt? Why did he kill? He wasn't hungry. Why do we eat? Do we eat because we're hungry? And when we eat, do we eat as ravenous? Do we eat as selfish, wanting everything for ourselves? I have boys. Had boys in the home, and you put a dish out on a plate, and you say your blessing. You release the hamotzi, and you open your eyes and look around, and the plates are with the food on them are disappearing fast, and you're taking multiple helpings, and the little one's like, "Oh, what about me? There's none left for me." Well, how do we eat? How do we deal with food? Because food will be a part of our life, and this is why we infuse a blessing over the food. It's not to make the food holy. The food's food. We only choose that which is holy for us anyway, or at least clean for us anyway. And so we don't have to bless the food. What we do is bless the Holy One. And out of the blessing of the Holy One, release the things of the other realm beyond the veil over this atmosphere that we're in and over this food. And we say food is a gift from the Holy One. It is not for us to take and use for our own benefit or just make delight out of and to be gluttons about. Food is a precious gift that we receive. Why? You go to a Shabbat meal, Erev Shabbat meal at a house. You go to any festival where there's Jewish people around. There's a Jewish rabbi or somebody there. He's going to take something that many people would not like. He's going to take a glass of wine. I'm not talking about watered down. I'm not talking about grape juice. I'm talking about wine. Alcohol infused, 9%, whatever your case may be. He's going to take that glass of wine. And can this wine cause trouble? You better believe it can. You treat it like it's just something to ravenously take into yourself or lose yourself in because it's going to get you free of your thought processes, your worries, your anxieties. Yeah. So what does the rabbi do? He takes the glass in his hand and he lifts it up to the heavens as if he's receiving it. The hands are reaching upward. And as if he's receiving something from heaven. And then he makes Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen. Amen. And what he is doing is saying, of this thing that is of the earth, of this thing that has many potentials for damage and danger and whatever, we do not wish to take it like that. We wish to take it as we take everything that you give us upon this earth. With gratitude and with thankfulness and with a sense of responsibility, we're going to treat this responsibly. We're not going to do this for our own pleasure. We're not going to do this for our own honor. We're not going to do this to have more mirth in our family. What we're going to do is going to do in a way of blessing you and a way of reaching beyond the veil and touching you in those places and receiving from the heaven that which we need upon the earth for this process. How will we deal with those things? Well, I want to talk one more issue, and that's the issue of Yitzhak in Gerar. After the issue of the killing of the animal, Esau has killed the animal. The blessing has taken place. They've eaten of the meal. There's abundance of food in the house. And there's abundance of anger in the house now, too. That's in 27. In 25, we have the porridge, the whole issue of the bowl of stew. So we get to 26. After we have this making of the stew, the soup, the lentil soup, the red stuff by Yaakov, the next thing we're told, because Esau didn't just sell his birthright. This is where you need to know the Hebrew and you need to read the verbs. Esau did not just sell his birthright to Yaakov for a bowl of stew. What does your English Bible say? He despised it. He despised. He didn't just sell his birthright. Yaakov, he had no right to sell it. You can't sell something that's of the eternal realm. Yaakov had no reason to ask for it. No way. It was like, can I buy the moon? Sure, I'll sell you the moon. I'll sell you the moon cheap. I'll make you a deal on the moon. You can't really buy it, and I can't really sell it, but we'll pretend for the sake of this conversation. So it wasn't just about the selling of the birthright. It's about the other thing that Esau did. He despised the birthright. And the Hebrew word, it means to trample on is worthless. You know, I remember back in the days when I was a youth and we finished drinking our, should I not mention a brand name, a can of soda with white writing on a red can. We'd finish our can of soda with the white writing on the red can in cursive, and we'd finish it, we'd put it on the ground, and we'd stomp it with our heel and mash that can. If we didn't mess up in the way we stomped on it, we'd mash that can flat, and that's what Esau did to the birthright. He said, I'm going to die. He wasn't going to die because he didn't have food. He wasn't going to die because he didn't have the red stuff. He just said, I'm going to die. I'm a mortal being. I have no life after this. I have nothing beyond life on earth. Who cares about a stinking birthright? Who cares about something of the eternal realm? Who cares about a ultimate purpose in life and a meaning? I'm going to die like the rest of the world. I'm going to die. And so he despised, he trampled on, he held in very low esteem and was disgusted by the idea of a birthright. Why is that? First of all, we only now know about Deuteronomy and its instructions. In a different context, it says that if a man has two wives. Did Yitzhak have two wives? I'll answer your question, my question. If a man has two wives, and one of them is the wife of his youth, and he loves her very much, and he has a child, he used to love her very much, but he doesn't love her anymore. And he had a child by that child, and because the child is the child of that previous first wife, he doesn't love that child as much. There's another wife has come along. He's married again. He's got two wives, and he loves the second wife more than he loves the first wife, and so he loves the kids of the second wife more than he loves the second kids. In that situation, he says, now, here's the Torah. In that situation, whenever the man makes out his plan of how his estate is going to be distributed, he's going to give two portions to the unloved son. And one portion to the remaining son, or to a portion apiece to other sons. But there's a double portion comes to the unloved son. That's the Torah, and it's for a specific situation. Now, I know many people have adopted that process of primogeniture, and they've taken that position saying that now applies to all situations. But whatever it did, whichever way you take this process, whether it only applies to the situation to try to prevent or make up for the fact that the father has left and abandoned his first child, and to give them a bit of a hope and a reward in their fatherhood and their parentage, or whether it's for all situations, whatever it was, that's Deuteronomy. After Israel has come out of Egypt, that's after a whole nother generation. That's on the plains of Moab. That's before they go into the land of Israel. That ain't in Jacob and Esau's situation. And so what we think of as birthright is something that is all informed by other. What is the birthright really? It isn't even called birthright, and it has nothing to do with right. Birthright has nothing to do with anything. Bechorah is what it is, and what it means is by virtue of breaking forth the womb, by virtue of breaking forth from the womb, you have just changed the dynamic between husband and wife. Before, it was all about my wants, my needs, you're not meeting my needs, or I want to meet your needs because I want to love you, I want to treat you. It's all Yitzhak and Rivka. But now it's not just Yitzhak and Rivka, it's not just mommy and daddy. It's husband and wife, now it's mom and daddy. And now becoming forth, you've changed the dynamic in the family, and now focus needs to be upon this other person. So you've taken the focus away. And the idea is that whatever, and so most of the investment, the sense of need to invest who you are and what you are into this person comes with the firstborn. With your firstborn, you really feel, after a while, you get numb to it. You take 4/5 kid, 6th kid, you love them all, but it's like, oh man, can somebody take care of these kids for me? And you love them, and you do, and you want to get them good things and whatever, but you don't feel that urge, that instinctive drive that happens with the firstborn. I got to do this right. I need to. So the firstborn has this sense of calling, and that's what, Yitzhak was giving to Esau. He was giving him the attention because he needed it. But at any rate, so the other thing about the birth, the Bekorah, is that Bekorah is primarily not about right, it's about responsibility. What do you get? What is the firstborn's responsible for? Well, first of all, if something happens to the father, then the firstborn is responsible for taking care of the mother. Responsible for feeding her, for caring for her, for meeting her needs, for taking the role of the father upon himself for the need of that woman, of the mother. That's a high responsibility. Beyond that, the firstborn is the one who will take the responsibility of kinsman redemption. Oh, no. You mean some poor slob relative of mine got himself in a mess, blew it, had some, and I'm supposed to go, I'm the guy who's responsible out of all the family to leave mine and what I have and leave the 90 and the 9 and go after the one who's broken? Yeah, that's the responsibility of Bekorah. If you're the firstborn, then that's your job, to look out for the needs of the entire family and to go and do what's necessary to redeem the circumstances of whatever. The other thing is to take the role of leadership, the role of modeling of good works, modeling shalom, modeling joy and peace, all the fruit of the Spirit in your world, in your family, so they can see this is how you respond. You don't respond to affront and anger and irritation and aggravation and provocation with fleshly response. Instead, you got to show these younger kids that you handle it with shalom, with wisdom, with kindness, with mercy, with the things of the Holy One, with ways to overcome and transcend and bring light, because resistance, energy pulsing through resistance brings light. To bring light into every situation. That's just a few of the responsibilities of the Bekorah. And so Yaakov looks at it and he sees, that's what I was born for. That's the highest and best I could aspire to. Esau looks at it and says, not me. Not today. Not ever. I'm out for the red stuff. I'm out for the flesh. I'm out for my sentiment to feel sentimental. I'm out for controlling every situation. I'm out for being right. Being thought right. Being cowed down to as powerful and right. That's what I'm into. Forget your responsibility to take care of mama if something happens to dad. Forget the responsibility of being a model and a pattern of how to functionally handle life and life's challenges and life situations. Forget the idea of having responsibility for kinsman redemption and the weak of the broken one of our family line and keeping the honor of our family line by virtue of taking care of the least able to do so. Forget all that. And so that's what we have. We have the issue of what the firstborn right is. Now, Yaakov was very immature, and Rivka had no clue. She didn't get raised up in an idea where there was a covenant in place with the creator of the universe that said, you are my representatives, you are my ambassadors upon this earth. You have certain rights or privileges, but your privileges are subject to greater responsibilities. You are called to be actually examples of what I would do in a given situation. And that is our birthright. If you want to know what your birthright is in the covenant, this is why males are circumcised on the 8th day. It tells you from the time you're a little boy, when you have to do things that little boys have to do, you find out you're not like other people. You have a responsibility. You are under a covenant. You are under a level of firstborn duties. in the world. Redemption and redemption duties. You are under the whole realm of this idea of becoming the light in the world, becoming the hope, becoming the reason why people have a function and don't just surrender to the emotions, don't surrender to the pseudo-intellectual pride, don't surrender to the ethnic hate, don't surrender to any of the things that the rest of the world is telling you. The appetites, the urges, the desires, the lusts, the greed. Not surrender to those things. To keep contact with the holy realm. To keep letting things flow out of the realm beyond the veil. To release the holy things into even the most seemingly profane. Well, it's time to finish our meeting today. I encourage you all to read the whole Parsha of Toldot. There are many stories there. I encourage you also to read the writings. If you read Malachi and the Haftarah, the readings from the prophets that go along with this week, it's first couple of chapters of Malachi. Right before we get to Maccabees, right before we get to the Antiochus, what is the thing that needs to happen in us? Well, that's what the book of Malachi is all about. How are we going to prepare for the trauma that's about to hit our people and the earth? And then also from the Brit Hadashah, Romans chapter 9, Paul starts it out, would that I myself could be cut off for the sake of my brethren, the Jewish people, for all the things that the Holy One have put into them. They're not seeing it. They're not refining. They're like Esau. They're behaving like Esau. And oh, that they might be. But all Israel will be saved, and we see this process. He says there is a great plan afoot. There's a great scheme. I want to have my part to play in it. I want to be a part of this kinsman redemption process. That's Romans chapter 9. And then into 10 and 11. That's our story. Now, this is the other readings that you could do also, of course, since it's the first 3 weeks of Kislev. I strongly encourage you to restart reading. Pull out your Apocrypha for historical purposes. Pull out your Apocrypha and start reading 1st and 2nd Maccabees. And understand what the end of days will look like. It is the picture of what, in real time, the end of days will look like, and how we will, like Daniel says, those who know their God will rise up and do exploits. May that be said over you. May that be said over your family, over your children. May you have them, Antiochus Epiphanes and anti-Messiah, ready in these days. Amen. Shabbat shalom. See you next week.